Fintech Chatter TV. Presented by Tier 1 People. Leaders in Fintech Executive Search. Simon, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Dick. It's great to be here.
It is very good to have you here. I'm taken back to a conversation you and I had when we very first met, I think in early 2018, about digital banks. And so it's fantastic to have you here as the recipient of a full ADI. So congrats. This is the first opportunity I've had to congratulate you on that.
Yeah, thank you. We're very excited. As you've alluded to, there's a lot of time and effort to build a bank, and the team's done a terrific job in getting Alex.Bank to where it is today. Although, as I say to my team, the journey's only just begun, Dexter. The license is the first part of it.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about that journey, but before we do, could you share with the audience just a little bit more about Alex.Bank and kind of, what the big problem is that you're solving?
Yeah, and look, often it's not a big problem. We're taking banking back to the future, Dexter, and sometimes people are a bit surprised by that when they sort of think about other organisations solving big, hairy, audacious problems. We think banking should be simple. And we think customers are often looking for simple solutions in banking. So we're removing the friction, putting fairness back into banking, and that sort of played out by giving interest rates back on customer accounts that haven't had interest for a while, or removing fees that seem unfair and unreasonable, or penalising customers for paying loans back early. So, as Australia's newest challenger bank, which is 100% digital, we're just challenging the status quo and saying, how do we remove that complexity, price customers for risk? So we think if customers are behaving well and doing the right thing, then they should absolutely get better pricing and fairer pricing from us, and having easy to understand terms and conditions which enable customers to get a fast, flexible banking product, whatever it is, whether it's a loan from Alex.Bank or a term deposit from Alex.Bank, and we're finding our customers are loving it.
As a person who quite often voices his kind of frustration with banking in Australia, and I guess I've kind of got I wouldn't say unique because there's about 2.4 million of us in Australia, but as a small business owner, the kind of the personal banking experience that I have versus the business banking experience are very, very different. One just seems like, one is pretty slick, and I've got to take my hat off to my bank. I think they do a pretty good job. But the business side, oh, mate, it's terrible. I remember the conversation that you and I had where we were talking about core banking systems and, the legacy technology, and even the issue that this kind of breed of neobanks at the time were having around, what is the core banking system that you're going to use? With all of that in mind, like what is the kind of technology behind Alex.Bank, and how is this going to kind of differentiate from what we've seen previously?
Yeah, absolutely. Before I answer that question, just to jump on your comment about your business banking woes, I saw a recent post by you also sharing those woes. Alex.Bank is looking to solve those business banking woes for small business customers of Australia. And there's about, as you said, 2 point whatever million of those small business customers that have been pretty much deserted by the big banks, Dexter. And it's because of the cost to serve those customers. They're focused more on the larger end, and through what we've built and the technology we've built in Alex.Bank, which I'll talk to in a second, we think we can also deliver the offering that our customers are loving on the personal front, also to small business customers. So I hope in the next 12 to 18 months, I'll be able to solve Dexter Cousins' small business banking challenges as well.
I think that's actually what, the kind of real issue, the heart of the issue was. And I know people that work in these banks, right? They're good people. They're probably as frustrated as I am. But the challenge comes that, when you're kind of taken through processes where you constantly ask for information that the bank already has. The bank can see that you're trustworthy. They've got all this data there, and yet you still walk away from the experience. One, not getting an outcome, but two, feeling somehow that you're unworthy as a human being. Getting a car loan when you're actually quite a successful person. It's such a bad kind of not just a customer experience, but it's bad business, right? Like to make your customers feel that way.
Well, look, I think I was one of those bank executives up until a couple of years ago, and you're right. They're good people in great organisations that are dealing with legacy and bureaucracy that often trips them up. So I can tell you, most of my banking executives in large banks aren't happy with their processes, but the way their systems and processes have been designed, it forces them down that path. And I used to get upset using that as an excuse, Dexter, but it's a reality. And at Alex.Bank, I'm pleased to say we don't have that. And the reason we don't have that is we started with a clean sheet of paper. We all need a core banking system. We've decided to go with Terminus Cloud T24 banking system, but we also used Terminus for what we thought it was really good at, and also build our own tech out that enabled us to do the special things that are special for Alex. And so what that means is we're using Terminus as our product ledger today, and that's really important. That gives us and others the confidence that our product ledger is doing what it should be, and interest has been calculated and accrued and charged appropriately. But then the areas where it's really important from a customer experience point of view, we own that technology, and we've built that in the Azure environment. So, Terminus is in Azure, Microsoft Azure environment. We've built beside that the Alex environment, which allows us to control our UX and CX. And as an incredibly impatient CEO, it's important for me that my team can control that customer experience, Dexter, and we're not relying on a large software provider to take their amount of time to change, colors of buttons or customer experience things. So we can do that, and we can do that often the same day we decide to change it before we go home. And that's the power of owning that piece of the technology. We've also built our own proprietary credit decision engine, Alex Intelligence. And Alex Intelligence allows us to make really smart credit decisions extremely quickly, in fact, almost in real time. So, we're declining customers straight away, which a fast no is always a good no in banking.
It is.
And that allows people to move on to someone else. But also, with our straight-through processing we've designed, it means that customers are applying for an Alex loan in about 2 minutes and 40 seconds. The decision engine is able to do real-time approvals, but currently we're having credit officers look at those real-time approvals. So we're averaging a credit decision in about 10 minutes. And then that auto process then kicks back in where customers are given their documentation to sign via DocuSign and then fund through digital funding. So the fastest end-to-end process we've done on lending, Dexter, I'm pleased to say, has been about 30 minutes, and that's when everything's lined up. And on average, we're seeing our customers taking about 3.5 hours from a start to finish. That compares favourably to the traditional banks, and of which I've come out of, where it can be up to 10 days for a personal loan. So our technology's enabled that. And then broker's really important to us as well, Dexter. And so we've built a broker workbench, which allows our brokers to interact with Alex.Bank to make sure their customer experience is also a strong customer experience. And we're really proud with the uptake that the brokers have supported us with, and how that's going as well. So that technology, again, is some technology we've built at Alex.Bank.
I'm interested on the kind of building the new credit engine, because one of the frustrations, again, that I have not just with banks, but I think most financial institutions, is they seem to be working on these models of assessment that were created in the 1970s, where we all had jobs for life. And kind of now you've got people who are self-employed, you have people who are in the gig economy or the project economy, where they're professionals and they're consultants, and they might do 9 months work and then have a few months break. What have been some of there's been a lot of changes to the way that we live over this last decade. What have been some of those changes that you've seen that you've thought, hey, how do we bring this into a bank that's serving a modern day customer and not some customer archetype that was put together in the 1970s or 80s.
Yeah. Well, you hit the nail on the head about how people are earning money these days through the gig economy, as an example. So we don't ask for pay slips in our application process because pay slips are antiquated. Quite frankly, Dexter, people younger than you and I probably wouldn't even know how to access there or find the pay slip anyway. So through working with a partner, we take a bank feed from the customer's bank account, and that allows us to see their income and how that comes in. And it doesn't matter whether it comes in weekly, fortnightly, monthly, whatever. And it doesn't matter if it's different all the way through either, if you think about a gig economy where there'll be peaks and troughs. Yeah. So it allows the Alex intelligence system to understand what the income looks like. It doesn't matter if it's variable from different sources. And then it allows us to take a point of view on what that customer is earning. And that's part of a responsible lending decision. So we need to understand what someone earns, and we also need to understand what people spend money on. We've been able to do that without those friction pieces. I mean, can you imagine asking someone in the gig economy for their pay slips or records of how they earn money, and they turn up with 10 different pieces of paper and different things like that? It just
I can't imagine it because I've just been through it.
It wouldn't work, and quite frankly, to use one of my former CEO's words, it's just dumb to expect people to do things like that. So we've removed those frictions, and you know what? One of the things that warms my heart is when we see our Trustpilot scores coming in at 4.7 out of 5 from a customer experience from that. I think the team's done a marvelous job in building that out.
So you got 2,000 customers so far, I believe.
I think a bit over that now, but yeah.
Fantastic. And what kind of, what's been for you, I guess, the highlight so far of this journey?
Yeah, there's been many highs and lows, Dexter. Building a bank is not easy, and not for the ill-hearted.
I was going to say that. I don't think I had many words of encouragement for you when I first meet.
And certainly I find it difficult when I'm, someone asks to take me for a coffee and say, hey, I'm thinking about building a bank. Can you give me some advice? And to be fair, sometimes it's been, pack up and go and do something else if you're not of the right type of person. But I've loved my journey, Dexter, and I wouldn't change it for the world. Building a bank is exciting. Starting with a blank piece of paper is exciting. Removing those points of friction that as a customer yourself that you've encountered or you've heard firsthand from customers is exciting. I enjoy immensely talking to shareholders and selling our vision and what we're talking about and seeing their reaction. And frankly, I enjoy the interactions with our banking regulator, APRA. I think they're great people and they're really interested in making a difference. But rightly so, they hold a high bar as we want in this country to protect our deposit holders. So, lots of highs. COVID was a challenge for us all, Dexter. Overnight switching to working from home and not being able to interact with people, designing a business remotely is very challenging. I'm an old-fashioned person that likes a whiteboard and having a robust conversation around there. And frankly, as the banking regulator slowed down license applications through that, and COVID cost us roughly 18 months of time. But we didn't waste that time either in Alex.Bank, which I think is also important. We've got a great habit in Alex of turning setbacks or knocks into positives, and that's where we use that time to build out extra products to make sure when we did get our license restrictions removed, we were ready to really accelerate and do some interesting things.
Obviously, the capital requirements to have an ADI are quite significant and counterintuitive to the concept of a tech startup, which is you start lean. You don't need much investment. You can get a product out the door, test, iterate, and kind of lean startup methodology just isn't possible with a digital bank. How have you managed the kind of capital requirements in a tough investment landscape? Australia itself is super tough. Then you've got all the other factors that came into it as well. Plus then you've got others in the space who very publicly have failed. How have you managed to still be here today? I guess I'm gonna be that blunt, right? Because it is. I mean, it's a significant achievement for you to be where you are now.
Yeah, I think it comes down, and I'm asked this question fairly regularly, to be honest, and I think it comes down to grit and determination. My co-founder, and we don't often use that language, but my co-founder, Craig Fenwick, and I often say you make your own luck. I know I've had a number of conversations with Joseph Healy, the CEO of Alex.Bank, and we talk about making your own luck, perseverance. There's a lot of no's and a lot of doors have been closed on you when you're raising money. But there's the ones that, of course, support you and see the vision. So it's about the grit and determination. I never trust my future in anyone else either, Dexter. I think that's a dangerous game when you trust your future in someone else. So I always work closely alongside advisors to ensure we get the right outcomes. As an example, I've just come back, as I mentioned to you before we started, from a trip in the UK and Singapore. I'm on a quarterly rotation globally with investors and potential investors, talking about Alex.Bank, talking about our next milestones, and then going back and telling them that showing them that we've met those milestones or exceeded those milestones. And that's about them getting to know Alex.Bank, the team, and also in that instance, Craig and I, that we deliver on what we say we can. And I think that's really important in any startup. As you mentioned, I've been in EML. We started that, the four of us, from start, and again, it was about making sure you deliver on your promises and your commitment. And it's not easy. My previous life was much easier than my life at the moment, but the satisfaction is 100 times more here.
That point that you have about being very clear about milestones and then hitting those milestones and using that as, I guess, one, kind of template to go out and raise capital, but two, then instilling confidence. You're actually the second guest that we've had on the last 3 months who's given that, used that approach, and they just raised, I think, last week, 35 million in a very tough environment. So it shows, I think, very much, it demonstrates clearly that, there is, there are investors out there, there is money out there, but you have to show, what the money's first of all required for, what you're going to do with it, and what's in it for them. It's very simple. It's a very simple kind of psychology, right? But it seems to be lost on people that this is what's required.
Look, 100%, Dexter. And what I can tell you is my lessons, even just from this trip from the UK and Singapore and talking to large investors, is it's the same message around the world at the moment. Regulatory risk is a concern, and people don't want to be caught up in regulatory risk at the moment. So it's really tough if you're just starting out. We're in the fortunate circumstances where we no longer have any regulatory risk. The licensing is all done, and it's about moving forward. Globally, the desire around revenue is back in focus. It's back in vogue where it wasn't a couple of years ago. And Alex.Bank, because we're simple bankers, we always focused on lending led. And when we first met, I think I said to you, we're already starting to get going with our lending product, and so that's really important. And globally, that's what large investors are looking for. Show me that you can actually get a product going and you can get it into market. And we absolutely iterated a number of times that product, to your point before. And yes, it's hard on the capital side from the bank license, but it's not on some of your other product pieces. So you've got to work through that. Execution, again, being narrow focused on the execution, Dexter. So, I think some people around the world have made the mistake of trying to please either investors or other people and do too many things at once.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, most of those people fall by the wayside because you just can't afford to, in a startup, do everything at once. So, we've always been narrow focused, and we always said, if you saw my first business plan that I raised money off, that we'd be in market with one lending product and one deposit product. We actually, at the time we got our restrictions removed, we had 2 lending products and 2 deposit products, but that's because of COVID that we did an extra one. because the business of banking is very simple. You match fund your lending with your deposits. So you've got to make sure you generate that. And then the last lesson from my recent excursion, which again is not a new one for us, is having profitability in sight. Alex, we will be profitable month on month at the end of this calendar year. All things working as we envisage, and that's really important to have profitability in sight. Particularly, we've been going for some time now, as you mentioned, and investors expect to start to see that.
Yeah. So before we come to a wrap up, kind of what can we expect from Alex in 2023?
Yeah, I'm really excited about 2023. So as we started off, license restrictions are removed. We're out raising deposits at the moment. There's no problems in raising deposits. We're out match funding that with lending growth. And I think, it's a great time to be a bank, Dexter.
Yeah.
It's a tough time to be a non-bank lender, but it's a great time to be a bank. So we're out there writing good quality business and matching that with deposit gathering. We'll have some more products roll out through the year as well. Small business has always been an area that we want to focus on. Won't talk a lot about that now, but happy to catch up with you later in the year and talk a bit more about that if that's of interest.
Fantastic.
And that's sort of coming back to what we talked about before on the small business offering and solving some of the pain points you're experiencing yourself.
Oh, look, I think it's the biggest opportunity in Australia by far.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we will enter part of the mortgage market. And again, we do this very carefully, and we've learned a lot of lessons from both domestically and around the world on how people have entered that market. But we've got the challenge or the problem at the moment, Dexter, where most of our customers are customers of the Big Four, and they have so much enjoyed the Alex.Bank experience, they want to bring other banking to us. Yeah. So we've got the challenge of how do we continue to offer our customers great experience that they're used to with Alex.Bank, so we think through some of that transactional banking and mortgages that will also help small business holders. So that's sort of on the radar for this year as well.
Fantastic. And on that note, where can people go and find out more about Alex.Bank and join up?
So obviously our website, and our website is Alex.Bank.
Awesome. We get some great talent listening to this show, and what's the best way for them to find out about careers at Alex.Bank?
Yeah, so I think through LinkedIn, our head of HR, Kylie Vitale, is always looking for great talent.
Well, look, it's this podcast is more about quality than quantity, so I'm sure that people, if they do reach out, will be high caliber individuals. Simon, it's been fantastic to have this update with you. So just amazed and kind of admire your grit and determination to do this, and the touch of insanity that you've brought with it as well to kind of keep going.